held to his decision until death. My father chose me, his firstborn child, to succeed him.
She's doing everything she can to avoid warfare. So I think that one thing alone would make her a good queen because she cares about her subjects.
I think maybe a bizarre byproduct of not having a sort of more formal training in like battle strategy is that she comes at problems from a different angle.
I think Rhaenyra has been pretty even-handed. She's pretty irresistibly intelligent.
Rhaenyra, she just, from the get-go, has been smashing it. Imagine that face on a coin.
Okay, yeah, no, sure, Aegon can make a good king.
No, there's absolutely nothing I can say about Aegon why he should be king. He shouldn't.
Men in positions of power, and historically the crown has only been worn by a male monarch, so he gets the continuity vote.
In season 2, you see a different side of Aegon. You're just like, oh, you're a sad boy. You know, you want to do right, but you also want power.
I think Aegon is misunderstood in many ways. He would make a great king once he learns how to channel his fire.
You know what? If it was Aegon listening to his mother, he'd be a better king.
The fact that he just has a drive and he is just pushing everybody out of his way to get to that goal, I feel like that's just a perfect king quality.
Good. To war, then.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. House of the Dragon Season 2 just released a new trailer with a bunch of new footage and Easter eggs, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the episodes. Thankfully, the long night is over. We're finally getting new episodes really soon. We're also in the middle of CCXP while I'm posting this video. There might be another new trailer with even more new footage this weekend. Whatever they wind up releasing, of course I will do videos for it. But the whole bit with the new trailer here is they're trying to have both sides, the blacks and the greens, say why the other person, the other leader, would be a good king or queen. Starting with some of the new footage here, though, there's Rhaenyra and Jace at Lucerys' funeral. This might not be in episode 1. They might not have his funeral right away, even though he died in episode 10. So you'd think that they would have his funeral in, like, the next episode, which is episode 1. But what they might be doing, because they're trying to juxtapose the blacks and the greens, like both sides of the Dance of the Dragons throughout the season, both teams will lose, both teams will win at different points. They might delay Lucerys' funeral because of the other big funeral that's happening for Team Green during episode 2. So they might do both funerals for both sides in the same episode just to juxtapose the different perspectives, show that each of them loses in addition to both of them winning at different points. No spoilers about the death for Team Green, but that's related to blood and cheese stuff during episode 1. Like, there'll be a big retaliation in episode 1. It's mostly Daemon acting on his own with Mysaria. They didn't really get into this in the previous trailer footage. There's like a little bit of Mysaria that they've teased in the last couple of bits of footage they've released. But she's mostly loyal to Daemon, who is loyal to Rhaenyra, so she's mostly loyal to Rhaenyra. She becomes her mistress of whispers. So in episode 1, you have Daemon going to Mysaria and them doing their own thing under Rhaenyra's nose. Like, she doesn't order this big retaliation, but you can kind of see those vibes coming from her, like she's really angry and ready to go to war, whereas before she was not. This is another new scene of her on the beach at Dragonstone. It seems like she's getting ready to meet the Dragon Seeds. There's a scene of them actually having dinner, like her, Daemon, having dinner with the other Dragon Seeds, and those are the people who are capable of riding dragons, but they've changed this a little bit from the books, I think. A lot of people wondered if they were going to do Nettles, or maybe they were going to skip Nettles' character. What they probably did on the show here is they just gave Nettles' storyline, or some parts of her storyline in the Fire and Blood book, to Baela's character. Because there's a bunch of new footage of Baela that was not in the books during the last big trailer, where you see her on her dragon flying over what looks like the remnants of the battle at Rook's Rest. So in the aftermath of that battle, I think that Baela shows up on her dragon looking for Rhaenys and Meraxes, and that's why she's screaming here. There are a number of moments from the Dance of the Dragons in the books that they probably expanded on and changed, so we'll just deal with them when we see them show up in episodes. This is a new scene of Rhaenyra with one of her Queensguard, Laurent Marbrand. You have to remember that both Aegon and Rhaenyra have their own Kingsguard and Queensguard and their own small councils. This scene of her in front of the flames seems like Lucerys' funeral pyre, and she just stayed there late into the evening watching it burn to ashes. Her whole bit in this trailer about potentially having an advantage in the Dance of the Dragons is because she doesn't come from a military background like most of the other figures in Team Green and Team Black. Therefore, she doesn't fall back on a lot of traditional military moves that normal soldiers or people like the Greens might have, like Criston Cole in forming a lot of their troop movements, might expect later in the season. So at least theoretically, it'd be easier for her to do something that might surprise them, even though it seems like Daemon is calling a lot of the shots or trying to call a lot of the shots. Generally, everybody on Team Green seems like they're expecting a more traditional war.
Aemond, he was bullied and wronged as a kid. They carved his eye out. He bounced back, he put a sapphire gemstone in his eye. And yeah, they're gonna get what's coming through them.
My uncle is a challenge I welcome, if he dares face me.
No chance, I'm coming for his head.
She talks a little bit about why Aegon might have a stronger claim than her, even though I don't agree with what she's saying. Like, she's just doing this for the benefit of the trailer. Like, well, you know, he kind of has the primogenitor vote. That's what she means when she says the whole continuity vote. Within the context of the series, the way they explain Alicent being good friends with her, but so strongly opposing her becoming queen, is all because she's like team tradition, team rules. In her mind, she wants things to be the way they've always been. She wants to uphold all their traditions, and previously, it's always been male primogenitor. It's always been the closest living male relative to the king to sit on the Iron Throne. It doesn't have anything to do with her hating Rhaenyra or thinking that she would be a bad queen. It's just that it's not per tradition. Now, all the other people within the Greens have their own reasons for supporting Aegon's claim, mostly, as you would expect, their own personal agendas. They all stand to hold way more power under him than Rhaenyra might grant them. There's a bunch of new scenes of Aegon in his small council room. It's the same small council room from previously on the show. They've just taken it over. Notice how he absolutely cannot stand sitting in meetings. Part of the idea, I think, is when he comes to this, he's totally bored with the daily realities of being king, like all the responsibilities, just the formalities, things that you're expected to do when you become king or queen. He really only loves the idea of being king, the actual title itself, all the good parts. Even though the actual Fire and Blood book that this is all based on paints Rhaenyra within the context of history in a much worse light than the show has done, it is very clear that Rhaenyra came up being much more prepared to be a ruler in a traditional sense, to take on all the responsibilities that came with it. Per the books, and you kind of saw this play out during the show too, Viserys had been training her since she was a little girl how to be a ruler, so she came to it being much more prepared to shoulder the burden of actually ruling. Some of these new scenes of Aegon are a little bit funny too. I don't know if they're meant to be funny in the actual episodes where they appear, but part of the idea is that you're not really meant to take him that seriously, and that's one of the reasons why he has such a chip on his shoulder, because he doesn't think that anybody respects him. You're meant to get some vibes of Joffrey from him, even though he came much later in history, even though Joffrey, I don't think they portrayed as feeling like he was inadequate. Most of the time, Joffrey was just full-on wild chaos. You had absolutely no idea what he was going to do next.
So long as I am your king, treason shall never go unpunished. Bring me his head.
But notice in this scene where they show his new suit of armor, they actually full-on melt Aegon the Conqueror's Valyrian steel crown and stick it on a helmet so that he can wear it in battle while he's riding Sunfire, his dragon, without it falling off. Probably one of the greatest heirlooms in all of Westeros, in all of the world, and they're just going to melt it and stick it on a casual helmet so that he can fly around with it on. One of the differences during this part in history is that there are still people capable of working with Valyrian steel, even though they've lost the secret of how to create it. During this period in history, there's still way more Valyrian steel just around, period, in the realm. Eventually, what winds up happening is that because Valyrian steel is so valuable, it is incredibly expensive to buy, you wind up seeing it get stolen left and right all over the place and then resold all over the world. That's why in present day, there are so few great houses that actually have Valyrian steel swords. It is also really hard to work with, but they can actually reshape Valyrian steel, even if they can't make new ones. That's what happens to ice later in the timeline. We actually saw ice full on, like in the original Great Sword form, ice, with Cregan Stark at the wall with Jace. This is like the closest we've gotten to actually having a scene with Cregan Stark. But the cool thing is they had him wearing ice during it too, so like giving us all the Easter eggs possible in this moment. The only thing bigger than this would be actually having a White Walker show up like 5 seconds after this. There are White Walkers that are active during this part of the timeline, but they're mostly confined to the lands of Always Winter over in this part of the north. They're just not quite as active as they are later in the timeline during the events of the main show. But it does seem like each season they keep referencing the prophecy, the Long Night, the White Walkers, the Night King, so there'll be some kind of reference to them at some point this season. It'll seem like it'll happen when Jacaerys goes to the north to try and get Cregan Stark to swear fealty to Rhaenyra, which it seems like he does. In the books, they signed something called the Pact of Ice and Fire, which is another reference to A Song of Ice and Fire, like the prophecy of A Song of Ice and Fire, the prince who was promised. So when we see Cregan Stark, do not be surprised if you see a lot of Jon Snow Easter eggs and references to. Technically, he is Targaryen because he comes from Rhaegar Targaryen, but he is still half Stark through his mother's side, Lyanna Stark. There are also a lot of rumors about what Jacaerys got up to when he was at Winterfell with Cregan Stark. Maybe they'll allude to that, but there's only going to be 8 episodes, so it's not like they have too much time to spend with him up there. One of the other cool things about Cregan Stark is that we get deeper into the Dance of the Dragons timeline. He becomes a much bigger part of the story. So even though there's not that much footage of him right now, he becomes a much bigger character in future seasons. Cregan Stark winds up being a big ally of Rhaenyra's because he kind of went through the same thing that Rhaenyra is going through right now with someone within the Stark family trying to usurp the lordship of Winterfell. That whole Stark civil war went down during the time jump in the middle of House of the Dragon Season 1. So that's why he has the line in the trailer when he's talking about the rightful heir, Rhaenyra, quote unquote, because he himself was the rightful heir, but someone tried to usurp that from him. But if there's any other Easter eggs or references that you spotted in this new footage or things that I didn't talk about, just write it below in the comments. And when they do drop the next trailer, of course I will do more videos. Everybody click here for that other brand new House of the Dragon Season 2 trailer, and click here to learn about White Walkers during this part of the timeline. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.